Assalamualaikum and a very good evening to Sufridaus and to all of you. Today, we from Group 6 will be presenting about Siam and Northern States. Our presentation is divided into 4 parts, which are Kedah, Perlis, Kelantan and Terengganu. Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. My name is Nurfatin Amira and I will cover about Siam and Kedah. There will be introduction, Bangkok Agreement and Kedah-Siam War 1838. So, moving on to the introduction, basically Kedah starts at Bujang Valley located at Merbok, and this maritime kingdom at Bujang was visited by Indian, Persian, Arab and Chinese traders around 4th century. It is said that Bujang kingdom have evolved earlier than Srivijaya Empire, and for many centuries, the empires of Srivijaya and later the Cholas all exerted their influence and domination over this kingdom. Gunung Jerai used to be the navigational landmark for ships in the Malacca Strait, because the Bujang Valley was a collecting center for the Malay Peninsula and a transit trading post for ships awaiting the change of monsoon winds. The Kedah Annals weaves an interesting tale of the first Kedah ruler, Merong Mahawangsa, the first Maharaja of Kedah. 8 Hindu Maharajas is believed to have ruled Kedah and only the 9 converted to Islam. Between 80th to 20th century, Siam, British and Japan exercised political and economic control over Kedah, and during the 30th century, Kedah was dominated by Siam and became a vassal of it. So I guess that's basically it, a brief introduction of Kedah. Among the important events that happened during this Kedah-Siam War was the Kedah Blockade, 1838, where British suddenly turned from assisting Kedah at first to supporting attack of Siam on Patani and Kedah. So the first threat came from Siam on November 1821 when Siam came visiting Kota Kuala Kedah. Raja Ligurpia Suri Sapmuton was taken on a tour around Kuala Kedah city when he suddenly ordered his soldiers to attack the guards inside the city. And a great battle happened, and at last, Siam won over Kedah. Starting from that, Kedah and Siam became an enemy. After their loss towards Siam, Kedah army along with their sultan had to retreat and defend themselves in Penang. And there, they started to plan the strategies in order to snatch Kedah back from Siam. Finally, Tengku Kudin, Sultan's nephew with 3,000 armies, attacked Siam. They managed to chase Siam out of the states, but Siam and British announced that Malay people as terrorists. They won, but it was only temporary because Siam came back and Tengku Kudin along with his men had to back off and stay in Kota Kuala Kedah. British warships surrounded the coast of Kedah while Siamese army attacked from the land. The strength of Kota Kuala Kedah caused the Siamese had to build a high tower to shoot the Malays in the city. And after surviving for 3 months and fighting against 7,500 soldiers and 3,000 elephants from Siam, the city of Kota Kuala Kedah finally fell into the hands of Siam. Tengku Kudin himself was killed in the battle and his head was sent to Bangkok. In 1838, once again the Kedah army led by Tengku Muhammad Saad with a strength of 10,000 soldiers and 50 warships equipped with a light artillery drove the Siamese out of Kedah past Singgora, and they also managed to free Patani from Siam protection for a while. So to cut the story short, on 19 March 1839, the town of Kota Kuala Kedah was completely taken over by Siam, and their snipers were stationed at every corner of the town. The Malays there were all brutally murdered. Realizing chances for winning are very thin and the city will fall into the hands of Siam at any time, the Malay, assisted by Sepoy, decided to attack Siam in town as far as they could. Meanwhile, other Malay people were directed to save themselves by swimming towards the British ships. And at last, after war and war and war, Sultan Ahmad Tajuddin sent his youngest son, Tunku Dai, Tunku Zainal Rashid, to meet King Rama III. And during the meeting, Tunku Dai promised to recognize Siamese sovereignty on the condition that the Sultan of Kedah be restored to his throne. He has lost Perlis and Satun but managed to save Kedah from Siam, and he also managed to keep the institution of Malay rulers until today. So now we will be talking about the Bangkok Agreement. Bangkok Agreement was signed at the palace of King of Siam, and this agreement was between United Kingdom and Siam. And it was signed on 10 March 1909 and only approved on 9 July 1909. This agreement was the result of Anglo-Siamese negotiations on issues of British areas of influence and Siamese dignity. The British were concerned about trade rivals and the influence of France, while Siam wanted to regain the dignity that had been lost to the extra-territorial right it had to give to the Western powers of France and Britain. This agreement was a success because Edward Henry Strobel started working on it from the first, because according to him, Siam need to gain something, and in this context, the northern states. And Ralph Paget was appointed as to represent King of Great Britain to sign this agreement. Among the content of the agreement are, first, submission of Kelantan, Kedah, Perlis and nearby islands. Second, submission in 30 days after the ratification of the agreement. And third, territories' debts will still be given to Siam. And of course, there were also effects from this agreement. So firstly, Sungai Golok became the international border between Siam and Patani. Secondly, British handed over Tabal, one of the territory in Kelantan, to Siam. And Siam also handed over Reman to Kelantan and Perak. And Sultan Muhammad V of Kelantan objected the surrender of Tabal to Siam. So as you can see, the picture below was taken during the Bangkok Agreement, and the map is the map of Malay Peninsula and Siam. So I guess that's all from me, and I shall pass the floor to the next presenter. And thank you.
My name is Nofitra Atika binti Shamsuddin. My metric number is 1817208, and I'll be presenting on the next northern Malay state, which is Perlis. Perlis used to be one of the colonies of Kedah Sultanate. However, they are rarely been mentioned because it was generally known as Kesultanan Kedah and jajahan-jajahan takluknya. After the Siamese conquered Kedah in 1821, the British, with the intention of securing their interests in nearby Perak, negotiated the 1826 Bernese and Law Treaties, which resulted in formal relations being established with Malay states of Kedah and Perak with the Kingdom of Siam. However, the exiled Kedah Sultan, Sultan Ahmad Tajuddin, was not returned to his throne. Therefore, Sultan Ahmad and his armed supporters then fought on for his restoration for over 12 years, starting from 1830 to 1842. Finally, in 1842, the exiled Sultan agreed to accept Siamese terms and was restored to his throne of Kedah. The Siamese separated Perlis and made it into the separate principality and a vassal to Bangkok. By other words, Perlis was separated from Sultanate of Kedah and established as a separate sultanate. Syed Hussain Jamalullah of Arab descent and grandson of the Sultan Kedah became the first Raja of Perlis. His descendants until now still rule Perlis but as Rajas instead of as Sultan. Moving on to the Bunga Emas. Bunga Emas is the tributary gift which consists of gold and silver flowers in the form of tree. The real origin of bunga emas is unclear whether this peculiar form of tribute was influenced by Chinese, Indian or Buddhist culture. However, this practice has become part of Ayutthaya and the Bangkok dynasty since the 16th century. The bunga emas will be prepared and sent to the Siamese king by all the northern Malay states, including Kedah, Kelantan, Terengganu and Perlis. Siam and the Malay Kingdom have different interpretations of the meaning of the bunga emas. The Malay Kingdom considered bunga emas as tanda sepakat or bersahabat or a token of friendship and alliance. While Siam, according to Kop Kwa Suwanatappian, the bunga emas was the sole political system within the traditional context known to be the people of this region that ensure the survival of the weak and the smaller state facing the threat and design of the more powerful and bigger one. As has been mentioned earlier, bunga emas will be presented by all the northern Malay states to Siamese king, including Perlis. There are differences of bunga emas between the northern Malay states in terms of characteristics and shapes. The differences of the bunga emas was determined by the Siamese based on the wealth and the number of people in the states. For Perlis bunga emas, they only have 3 layers compared to other states that consist of 5 layers. The first bunga emas that was sent to Siamese king by Perlis was in 1843 and the last one was in 1909. And Perlis was sent 22 times bunga emas to the Siamese king. In addition, the preparation of bunga emas in Perlis were made by the tax or known as duit ripai, where all the people need to pay for it. Next, the Perlis and the British administration. Perlis was unofficially administered by the British administration in 1902 until 1929. They were officially under the British administration in 1930 to 1941. Officially and unofficially were determined by the existence of the treaty and agreement by both parties, which is Perlis and British. Perlis was unofficially administered by British for almost 20 years through State Council, and in 1909, the first British advisor was sent to Perlis, namely Mr. Meadowfrost. There are a lot of progress that happened, such as progress in the administration, economy, social safety, health, communication, and transportations. Before this kind of progression happened, Perlis was known as one of the smallest states and one of the poorest states in Malay state. Then, in 1930, Perlis was officially under the administration of British, which has been made through the treaty that made by the Sir Cecil Clementi Smith, who was a governor of Federate Malay states, and Raja Said Alwi. And with this, Perlis has become the last state that was officially under the administration of British. And lastly, I will be presenting on the Perlis and Siamese Kingdom. Perlis was under the Siam Kingdom administration from 1943 to 1945. With the Japanese invasion in 1941, Perlis was returned to Siam by the Japanese as a reward for Siam's alliance with Japan. The commissioner who in charge in Perlis was namely Charna Songkram. Compared to the other commissioner in the other northern Malay states, Charna Songkram was the lowest in terms of rank. This is probably because Siam is one of the smallest and poorest states. However, the Siamese administration lasts for only 25 months in Perlis. Even though just for a short period, there are a lot of changes that happen. For example, the pattern or the style of the administration was changed from Japanese style into the general style, where the Siam administrative were helped by the local to govern the states. After all of this, Perlis returned to the British rule until it became a part of the Malayan Union and the Federation of Malaysia in 1957. That's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Siti Adiba binti Wasrafernai, and now I will proceed with Kelantan State or Kelantan Kingdom. So to begin, I would like to start with the background, as we want to look into the historical events that had took place in Kelantan. So to begin, Kelantan is one of the Malay old capitals, and it actually had been ruled by the several dynasties that had close bonds with them, or actually from the neighbor governments such as Patani Kingdom, Siam, Champa, and even Terengganu. So one of the famous figure, or one of the well-known figure in Kelantan is Long Yunus, where he is known as the founder of the modern Kelantan, and he also responsible for the Kelantan that had exists today. And in 18th century, there was a conflict that had emerged from the friendship of Long Yunus between Sultan Mansur Terengganu. So from the conflict, it actually led to attack by Terengganu to Kelantan in 1794, but the attack was failed, and a year later, after the death of Long Yunus, Terengganu had attempt another attack on Kelantan, but it also failed. In 1800, with the aid of Patani, Terengganu had successfully defeated Kelantan. And soon after that, Tengku Muhammad Terengganu, son-in-law of Long Yunus, had been appointed as Kelantan's regent. But there's a conflict, as the son of Long Yunus, Long Muhammad, had came back and claimed for the Kelantan throne. So it's like prolonging the dispute between Kelantan and Terengganu. And when Kelantan's regent at that time, Tengku Muhammad Terengganu, refused to give the throne to the Long Muhammad, then Long Muhammad attacked Tengku Muhammad in 1801, and he succeeded in capturing the Kelantan's kingdom. So soon after he had succeeded the Kelantan's throne, he had assumed the title of Sultan Muhammad I, and even declared himself as the new ruler of Kelantan. So His Majesty Long Muhammad had established diplomatic relations with Siam in order to protect Kelantan from Terengganu's threat. And in 1818, Kelantan also had paid a tribute to Siam in the form of a bucket of golden flowers. And Kelantan also was ruled by the Siamese kingdom until 1909, and the state also was unable to achieve independence because of the control. And the British took over the administration of the state of Kelantan after the Siamese and the British had signed the Treaty of Bangkok in 1909. Sultan Muhammad II, or known as Long Senit Mulut Merah, had refined the cabinet system during his reign from 1839 to 1866. So there are 8 cabinet bodies in total, and each one is made up of 4 leaders, and each cabinet has its own code of practice or had set of rules. Thus, the cabinet's 8 bodies are the King's Advisory Council, Cabinet of Palace Ministers, Cabinet of Ministers of Justice, Cabinet of Ministers for Home Affairs, Foreign Ministers Cabinet, Treasury Ministers Cabinet, War Cabinet, and the last one is Cabinet of Ministers of State Administration. The province administration has been divided into 3 colonies: Pasir Mas, Batu Makabang, and Pasir Puteh. And Tok Kueng was the colony administrator's name. and he served as a mediator for the citizens, the magistrate, as well as the palace. So these are the implications of the Anglo-Siamese Treaty of 1909 on Kelantan. Not only did Sultan Muhammad IV oppose the Bangkok Treaty, but he also refused to accept J.S. Mason as an advisor in Kelantan. Longsenik, the ruler of Kelantan, for example, he was frustrated and strongly protested the decision from the treaty, as it did not take into account the ruler's views and approval, who saw the agreement as violating the rights of a free Kelantan that did not wish to be tied to any foreign powers, including the British. Kelantan felt that because it was an independent state, its position should not be decided by Siam. Although Kelantan had followed the policy of sending golden flowers to Siam, this did not imply that Kelantan was under Siamese patronage. So the tribute was nothing more than a token of friendship under Siamese patronage. The tribute was, like simply a gesture of friendship that Siam and Britain misinterpreted, or in fact they manipulate. Longsenik firmly rejected the decision of the Anglo-Siamese Treaty of 1909. However, as a result of the threats and intimidation, such as the dispatch of warship, Longsenik was forced to submit to British demands and accept British control over Kelantan. The international boundary between Kelantan and Siam was marked by Sungai Golok. So this is how it looks like. The British also had handed over the province of Tabal to Siam, where it one of a district in Kelantan. Followed, Siam also had ceded Reman territory to Kelantan and Perak. Sultan Muhammad IV had objected to the surrender of Tabal territory to Siam because it's causing discontent among Tabal's Malay population, and as they did not want to live under Siamese rule, some Tabal residents had relocated to Kelantan. That's all from my part. I will pass to the next presenter. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good evening to our respected lecturer, Dr. Firdaus, and all my fellow classmates. Today I'm going to present on the northern Malay states, which is Terengganu. Oh, by the way, my name is Siti Nur Nabila binti Zainuddin, matric number 1812736. Okay, I'm going to tell all of you a little bit background of Terengganu. So Terengganu is one of the oldest states in Malaya, and the founder of Terengganu is Sultan Zainal Abidin. Terengganu became a kingdom of the port in the early of 18th century with the arrival of many traders from all over of the regions. And the civilization of this state is not only shown by the progress of trade relations, but also in the management of governance and the rule of law. And also, Terengganu is the last state to receive a British advisor. Later, I will talk about this more. Why? And then the Sultan was held by the head of state, and also Terengganu have a connection with Siam, Kelantan, Patan, and Johor. And how the connection goes with the Siam, I will talk more after this. Okay, about Terengganu, relationship between Terengganu and Siam. Before the Anglo-Siamese Treaty of 1909, Terengganu is under the management of Siam. Terengganu needs to send golden flowers as a tribute to the King of Siam every 3 years. These gifts from the sultans to the king were probably laden with deep political misunderstanding. This is what I read from this one article on internet. It said that while the king of Siam would consider them as a recognition of the sovereignty over the Malay sultanates, the sultans would simply regard them as a token of appreciation, token of friendship. And that the relationship between the northern sultanates and the kingdom of Siam has never been an easy one, as can be seen by the various appeals for the protection to the different occupying powers, Dutch or later the British. They could occasionally even be exchange of concealed insult. According to a note found in the Cambridge University Library, the author mentions that he had seen a letter which was sent to the Sultan of Terengganu by the King of Siam, in which the letter reversed the traditional courteous formula, and by saying that sending a gift from the head of the Sultan to the feet of the king and then the Sultan of Terengganu replied insultingly from beneath the king's feet to the crown of the sultan head. Yeah, something like that. So as you can see, their relationship is not that good. One is Anglo-Siamese Treaty of 1909. Before this, my friends have introduced you about this treaty, but I'm going to focus on Terengganu itself. So since 1902, British tried to convince the government state of Terengganu to receive an advisor from British named Sir Frank Swettenham in Kuala Terengganu. However, Sultan Zainal Abidin III does not agree because of differences in religion, and it will interrupt the politics of Malay Muslims in Terengganu itself. Furthermore, the Terengganu is under the management of Siam until this treaty happened. And this treaty recognized Terengganu as a self-governing Malay Mohammedan state, and therefore Terengganu officially accepted the appointment of a British agent or a consular's office. However, the British do not have full authority to govern Terengganu yet. And how come they get their fully authorities? Let's. Okay, next is law for the Terengganu state government, or in Malay it called as Undang-Undang bagi diri Kerajaan Terengganu, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me. So, in this, how this law being introduced, this is because of the unrest in Pahang is very worrying for Terengganu, because of British opponents in Pahang seek for protection and help in Terengganu, and then the arrival of British soldiers to Terengganu was for hunting purpose, and they want to hunt the opposition, cause the Sultan and state dignitaries to become very anxious. And in order to strengthen the system of government, Sultan Zainal Abidin introduced the law for the Terengganu state government on 2 November 1911. This law is the highest written constitutional document that specifically provide the authority for the establishment of the highest bodies in the state of Terengganu, namely the Jemaah government, or we call as the uh, Jemaah Menteri, if I'm not mistaken, and cabinet meetings. This legislation also indicates the existence of a constitution, a written as constitution, thus the existence of a monarchical system of government constitutionally based on Islam. And then during the reign of Sultan Zainal Abidin III, ulama were appointed as judges, and some of them were entrusted with holding the highest authority in the field of law. For example, the position of Commissioner of Religious Affairs and Justice also at the same time holds the portfolio as Minister of Justice and Religion for the state of Terengganu. Therefore, it is not that Islamic law is dignified at the highest position in the state of Terengganu through the full involvement of the ulama in the state executive committee. On this particular time, British influence had less place in the Terengganu government, and this situation caused its influence to grow a little bit late compared to other states. What I said before at the background part, the last state that received the advisor. This is why. Yeah. Unfortunately, this law is not being obeyed after the death of Sultan Zain Abidin III, and therefore it helps the invasion of the British into Terengganu as whole. Yeah, that's all from me. Thank you.